Welcome back guys to Geeks of the Realm, and in this video I'm going to be doing a 2000 point army list review that I tend to use for when I'm doing games of Age of Sigmar with my friends or tournaments and stuff like that. You will be quite surprised because I don't bring that many eels. Okay, I think I've got 6 eels in the list. So yeah, I'll talk about each unit, why I have them, the abilities they've got, talk about the artifacts, the command traits, command abilities, and anything else, and obviously the Enclave. Okay guys, we'll go through that and I'll talk about it. So yeah, that way around, eh? Let's get started. Right guys, so this is my 2000 points of Idoneth Deepkin. I've deliberately not gone and got loads of eels because I've seen lots of people play it and they just literally spam eels. Now I don't like the word spamming, okay, because in this game you can literally bring anything you want. But I like to go for the rule of cool. So I like to bring all the big units because they look amazing. Okay, the sharks look amazing, the turtle, the Eidolon. I think they're really cool models. So I want to get them into my lists. Every chance I can, they're going to come in the list. It might not be the most powerful list or competitive list, but it dishes out a lot of damage. It's got lots of different units in that can do lots of different things, and yeah, I'm just, very excited to play these. So what I'll do is I'll go through the units that I have. I will go through the book and what sort of artifacts I give my generals, and command traits I give my generals, and any artifacts I give other units and any warscroll battalions. Now, I don't take a warscroll battalion, however, I can with this just by dropping this fella here. Now, I have tried it and it works. It's sort of, now and again, if I fancy a change, I'll just drop him and put a warscroll battalion in, which I'll go through, guys. So, as you can see, I've got a unit of 10 here, a unit of 10 Nomatri Reavers. Now, the Nomatri Reavers are very good as an objective taker, as it were. They're not really good for close combat, but for objective takers, they are good. There's 10 guys. Now, their stats for these guys, okay, are, I'll read it out here so I don't get anything wrong. But the movement is 8 on them, which is fantastic for foot soldiers. They're brilliant for their movement. So their movement is 8. They all have 1 wound each. They've got a bravery of 6, and they've got a 5+ save, which, for 140 points for a unit of 10 is not too bad. Okay, not too bad when it comes to the abilities they have. Now, in the ability section of them, they can say, which has been FAQ'd as well, because in the book it says models in this unit can be an icon bearer, but in the FAQs it says 1 in every 10. So you can see I've got an icon bearer here, which is the guy with the big sort of banner at the back. And he can have an additional attack with his keening blade, I think it's called. Yep, keening blade. Okay, so it's an additional attack with that. They normally have 2 attacks each, melee combats, but the icon bearer has 3, so it's technically like your sergeant, as it were. So they have, for a melee attacks, they have a 1-inch range, 2 attacks each, 3 attacks for the icon bearer. Then it's 3s to hit, 4s to wound, no rend, and 1 damage. So not fantastic in hand to hand, but yeah, they can dish out maybe 2 or 3 wounds. Okay, if you get them all right. But it's not the melee attacks you want, it's the shooting attacks they've got. So they're missile weapons. They've got, basically they've all got bows, and they can take two different shots, as it were, with the bows. If they're within 18 inches, then they can use the aim shot. So each of them basically takes it in turns and shoots 1 shot each with their attacks. And it hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rend, but 1 damage. Not too bad. There's a unit of 10, so you're going to get 10 shots within 18 inches. Okay, now that's not bad at all. The best part is, if you get within 9 inches of an enemy, you can use their Stormfire firing style, which allows them to have 3 attacks each. So a unit of 10 has 30 attacks within 9 inches of an enemy. Hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, no rend, 1 damage a pop. But rolling 30 dice, that's pretty good. Okay? So I quite like them, just as a bit of a distraction. You know, they're going to run off, take some, I don't know, take objectives, and then people think, well, I need to go and take them out, where it's actually these guys at the back, these 3 here, that do all the damage. These are just sort of objective takers and, you know, cause a nuisance in the back lines of people. But their abilities they've got is called Swift Tide, which means that they can re-roll their run rolls if they want. So if you say, I'm going to run them, you roll a dice and it rolls 1, you know, you can say, right, I'm going to re-roll that, and you roll it again, and you get hopefully a better score. So I quite like that ability, especially in the second turn from the Idoneth Deepkin Army, when they've all got the Tides of Death trait, that a unit can either run and charge or run and shoot in the second turn. So they get to run, you know, they've got a move of 8 anyway, they do a run, you know, with a re-rollable run, and they can still shoot, so they can get quite close and doing that 3 shots quite quickly. So I like that. The next one then, obviously, is that fluid firing style, which is the 2 different styles I've talked about. One where you can shoot within 18 inches and that aim shot of 1, or the 3 shots. Okay, so I quite like them. 140 points for that single unit there. It's flimsy because, like I say, the 5-up save can be rendered, so you can go up 6 up, so you can lose quite a lot of them. But I just have them there as sort of guys running around taking objectives, and if they die, they die, but they do the job of giving me points early on in the game, or steal points at the end. You know, that's what I use them for. So I take a unit of 10 of them. Then I'll go on to a unit of 10 of Nomatri Thralls. Now, I do rate these guys quite a lot for hand-to-hand, okay? These are quite brutal with the right opponents, okay? Exactly the same as these guys, so they have a 1 wound each, 6 bravery and a 5+ save. The only difference is these can only move 6. So they can move 8, these can move 6. It's not too much of a problem, especially when you can run and charge and run and charge. These have no shooting, so each turn you want to run until you get close enough to do your charging. These just want to run. Okay, so again, I quite like that. Them for 140 points again. Now, they've got the Nomatri blade. Now, as you can see, there's 10 there, and I've got 2 icon bearers. And the reason for this is when I bought the Battle Force box, I opened it up, had a look through, I went, right, oh brilliant, I'll stick these on. And when I read through the book, it says models in this unit can have an icon bearer. So I thought, brilliant, if I give them all icon bearers, or all of them the icons, they get an extra attack. But then it got FAQ'd, didn't it? So I looked at the FAQs and it said 1 in every 10. So when I've got another 10 thralls to make. So when I make them up, I won't put a banner on them ones. I will just change it over. Okay, it saves me cutting it down. But they've got a 1-inch range attack, 2 attacks each, 1 extra attack for the icon bearer, so that'll be 3 attacks for him. Hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, and 1 damage. That doesn't sound too bad at all for a unit of 10 for 140 points. But it's the ability that kicks in, which is class. Okay, guys? They have an ability called Sweeping Blows. Now, I'll read it out to you. It says, add 1 to the attack characteristics of Nomatri blades if all the attacks made with this weapon target enemy models with a wound characteristic of 1. Or add 1 to the damage characteristic instead if all of the attacks made with this weapons target enemy models with a wound characteristic of 4 or more. So put it into layman terms, if these guys, all of them attack single wound models, they get an extra attack each. So a unit of 10 can have 30 attacks, or 31 attacks, sorry, with an icon bearer. Which is brilliant, again, because you only need, you know, these can pile in 3 inches, so you can get most of them in. So you're going to do roll a lot of dice for them. Okay, so they get an extra attack for going at 1 wound models. If they're going at wound models that are 4, then everything's still the same, except the damage characteristic, instead of being 1, it's 2. So they are really good against sort of enemy creatures, so the big ones, so your big behemoths and things like that. Generals they're quite good against, as well as going for horde armies, so skeletons that keep coming back, and you know, Seraphon skinks and stuff, they're pretty good at going against them. But like I said, they are kind of like glass cannons. They'll run up, do all the big damage, but then they'll take a lot of damage when they come in because they've only got 1 wound and 5 up save. So again, what I tend to do is try and keep these as object takers, and if people come to me, that's when I can look at attacking with them. Okay, so that's what I use them for. Again, 140 points for each of them. Then I have 2 units of the same eels. Okay, now the eels I use are the Achillion Ishlaen Guard. Okay, instead of the Morsar Guard. Now the Morsar Guard are the ones that do the D3 damage or 1 damage on a 3+ once per battle if they're getting within an inch, you know, start your combat phase. That's good and it is very powerful, but it's only a 1-shot deal. You come in, you know, you might roll, you know, 1s and 2s and you might not get anything out of it. Yes, you might roll 6s and you might get D3 damage out of it and, you know, kill a whole unit without even attacking. So it's very situational and very dependent on the dice. But that's 160 points for that. For a unit of 3, it's 140 for the Ishlaen Guard, which are super hard to kill. Okay, they all have 4 wounds each. You can have a banner in your unit and you can have a musician. The musician allows you to re-roll failed charges, and the banner allows you to re-roll battle shock tests. Okay, and then you also have the Achillion Prince, which again is like your sergeant or something, you know, leader of that pack, and he gets an extra attack with his Hell Saber. Okay, so I have 2 units of them. I know these ones have got the spears, the Vault Spears, so these technically are the Morsar Guard, but what I've done is I only had 2 units. I bought 2 the Battle Force boxes, so I made 1 unit with the Helvet Sabres and 1 unit with the Morsar Guard Spears, just because they're 2 different ones, and I thought I'll give it a go and see what they look like. But when I play them, that's how I use them. I use them as the Ishlaen Guard. They have 4 wounds each, move of 14, so really fast unit, bravery of 6, so if you lose one of them, you are going to have to take a battle shock test, okay, because you on a 6 you can lose somebody. And they have a 4+ save. The thing with this unit, with the Ishlaen Guard, is that they cannot be rended, okay, they can get pluses to the saves, but they can't take a negative to the saves, so they ignore rend. If you've got spells or other abilities that negate rend or, you know, -1 to your save, then they'll take that, but any rend from any weapons they do not take. Okay, so they have a 4+ save that's not rendable, okay, which I think is brilliant. It's 50-50 if you're going to take the wound or not, and they've got 4 wounds each, so it's quite hard to chew through them. Okay, but another good thing about these is if they charge, they get their 4+ save goes down to a 3+ save on the turn they charge. So when they're charging in, they are a 3+ save that can't be rended, doing a lot of damage, or can potentially do a lot of damage, okay, but you can't do much damage to them because of their 3+ save. It's better than average, and I quite like that. I think that works a lot better. And for 140 points instead of 160, so you're saving yourself 20 points to get something that's always there through the game. Now these are not classed as monsters, so in the first turn an Idoneth Deepkin Army are classed as being in cover, which means these are classed as being in cover, okay? And also, if they're within 12 inches of me big bad boy Snappy Jaw Turtle over here, they get the +1 to saves as well. So again, that 3+ save is going to be, you know, you're going to try and get that as more times than enough with these guys. So very hard hitting very hard to kill unit, and the sort of death of the 1,000 cuts. They're not very, none of it has rend, so when they do the weapons, and there's no rend in these weapons, but they have a lot of attacks. Okay, so the Hell Sabres that they have, apart from the Prince, which he has an extra attack, they all have 3 attacks each. So you're looking at 3, 6, +4, so it's a 10 attacks first from the Hell Sabres, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, no rend, 1 damage a pop. Now that's not bad. Hitting on 3s is, you know, better than average. Wounding on 3s, again, better than average. So they can come in and do quite a lot of damage, and, you know, force opponents do a lot of saves. Then they have a Fanged Maw, basically it's called. Fangmora's Fanged Maw. So they get an extra attack for the bite. So each of these eels have a bite attack, which is hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, and D3 damage. Okay, very good. Now the Enclave I take with these is Futan, because my game style is a lot aggressive. I like to get in there fast with my big units, do a lot of damage, and hold. I have a few of my units that hold objectives for me. Okay, the rest of them just go out and look for a fight. Now, so the Futan for me is brilliant, because the Futan Enclave allows me to reroll ones to hit in the Flood Tide turn, which is the second turn, and it also allows that when the Ebb Tide to the Death Table turn comes in, which is turn 4, it allows me to change that to the Flood Tide table, so they get to reroll ones to hit in the Flood Tide in the 4th turn as well. So in the 2nd and 4th turn, all my unit get to reroll ones to hit, which is great. But also, they have an ability where basically you've got the Furious Creatures, and it means that all my mounts get to reroll ones to wound. Now, as you can see, I've got a lot of mounts, okay, and they get to reroll ones to wound, which is awesome, especially for this fella here, okay. For his melee attacks, he can just dish out a lot of damage through that, which we'll go through in a bit, okay. So that hitting on 3s, on the second turn they reroll 1s to hit, they're wounding on 3s, and because they're the fangs from the eels, which are my mount, I get to reroll 1s to wound. Awesome. No rend and D3 damage. So again, if one goes through, you've got a potential to do 3 damage. If all of them go through, potential to do 9 damage just from the bites. Okay, and then they have D3 lash and tail attacks each. So I pick 3 dice up, roll them, and I add up the D3s of them, and that's how many attacks I have. And again, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, no rend, but 1 damage. So the potential to do a lot of attacks from a unit of 3. I love them, and I have 2 units of them. Okay, so 140 points each. Okay, then we move on to the next, which is my favourite unit of the whole army. Okay, and it's the best looking model, I think, is the Achillion Leviathan. This bad boy. It is awesome. The paint job on it, I like the paint job that I did. I did my own, well, I copied a little bit of Games Workshop style, but then I added details to the shell that's not in the book, so I had to make it a little bit more realistic, and then I put a bit of gloss varnish on top to make it look nice. But I love the way it's come out. Anyway, enough about the turtle, we'll talk about the actual stats from it. This thing here has 16 wounds, okay? 16 wounds for this fella, and a 3-up save. Now it is classed as a monster, so it doesn't get its cover benefit, okay? So its 3-up save is the base it can get, unless you give extra spells to it, but its base save is 3+, it has bravery of 7, and it moves, it obviously goes down for the wound it takes. So the first level it is, or the first, when it's fully healed up to 3 wounds, he can move 12. The next bracket down he moves 10, and then he goes 9, 8 and 7, okay? So he can get to move quite fast into the enemy lines and do all sorts of damage. This has also been FAQ'd, okay? So in the book it says his Razor Shell Harpoon Launcher has so it's a ranged weapon, it's a missile weapon, range of 24, still the same, but it says in the book you have 3 attacks with it. In the FAQs from, I'm doing this now in January 2019, the FAQs state that it has 6 attacks, so it's oomphed it up a bit. So 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, no rend, but 1 damage. So it's a nice little thing to get there and do a little bit of damage if need be, just before you get in. Because the best part of it is his melee attacks. Now he has a Leviathan's Crushing Jaw, 1 inch, it has 1 attack, okay, then it goes to a star, so it comes down at the table, which means it gets worse the wounds it takes. So it hits on a 2 with taking 0 to 3 wounds. The next bracket is 4 to 6 and it hits on 3s. Then it hits on 3s again from 7 to 9 wounds. And then it hits on 4s from 10 to 13 and then 14 plus 4s again. Okay? But it's got a special ability. If you roll a 6 to hit, then it does 6 mortal wounds. Okay, instead of the normal damage. So if you come down to where it says the abilities, it says Jaws of Death. And each time you make a hit roll of a 6 for it, it does 6 mortal wounds than the normal damage. So it's 6 wounds coming through. It's awesome. And it wounds on 2. So it hits on 2s, Wounds on 2s. Now because I take Futan, that is a mount, which means I can reroll 1s to wound. So I hit on wound on 2s, rerolling the 1s. It's insane. -2 rend, D6 damage. Now I always use this when I'm with my king. Now I take Volturnos, which we'll go through in a bit. So I'll take Volturnos, and his ability allows this creature, this awesome unit, in the 3rd turn only in High Tide, to get an extra 3 attacks per. So it gets an extra 1 attack, melee attack per melee weapon it has per command point I spend. So if I save 3 command points, then technically every melee weapon this guy uses, he gets an extra 3 attacks with them. So that 1 attack for his crushing jaws turns up to 4 attacks with its crushing jaws. Devastating. With this model alone, I think I've done 40 odd damage for this model alone. It's insane. Okay, this is a proper unit killer and big boss killer, to be fair. Then it has its Leviathan's massive scythed fins. So it has 2-inch range for them. It has 4 attacks or 7 attacks when I use the command ability from the 3rd turn. Hits on 3s, wounds on 3s. Because it's a mount, it gets to reroll the 1s to wound because of Futan. -1 rend, 3 damage a pop. So it's coming in and dishing out a shed load of damage. Okay. Then it has the geezers on the top get to attack as well. So you get Twin Pong Spear, 1-inch range, 2 attacks, 3s and 3s. So 3s to hit, 3s to wound, no rend, but 2 damage. And then you have the Razor Shell Harpoons, 1-inch, you get 4 attacks with them, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s. There's no re-rolling the wounds here because it's not the mounts unless you're within range of your Eidolon. Okay, so it's just as it is. So hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, no rend, 1 damage. So this bad boy here gives out a lot of damage, especially in the 3rd turn. It can dish out a ton of damage. I've normally sent this in with an Eidolon, and the Eidolon hasn't even managed to attack because this has took the whole unit out. Okay, it's mental. Okay, then you come down to his description, tells you about him. So the Achillion Leviathan can fly. It has the Jaws of Death ability, which I told you about, which is the hits of 6. You do 6 mortal wounds. But it has this fella at the back here banging on a drum called the Void Drum. And what that gives is units wholly within 12 inches, so Idoneth Deepkin units wholly within 12 inches of this model are classed as being in cover. So the only thing that doesn't get it is itself, because it's a monster, and the 2 Allopexes, because they're monsters. And everything else, unless it charges, can get the cover, which is insane. So it's +1 to your saves. That, I think, is great. The only issue I have with this model is it's 380 points. Now, there's a lot of debate whether, now I'm obviously part of a club and obviously part of a lot of Facebook channels and stuff like that, and talk to people in the groups. People don't tend to take this in competitive lists. And the reason why they don't take it is because it's 380 points, and they say, well, 380 points, I can get some more units of eels and stuff like that for it. It is expensive, and I agree it's expensive. I was looking the region of about 300 points for it, because I sort of link it to the Black Coach from the Night Haunts, where that's 280 points, and that can give out loads of damage, and it gives lots of buffs to stuff around it, and it gets buffs for himself, and it heals himself. This doesn't, you know, this takes wounds, it takes wounds, and that's that. So I think it's massively expensive for its points, you know. But then people say, well, that 3rd turn comes along, you can do all that attacks with it. Yeah, you can do all that, but you need a king with it to be able to do all these attacks. The king's quite expensive, so it is expensive for what it is, but I always take it in because it's, like I said, I like to play Rule of Cool, and that is a cool looking model. Okay? So we have that. Then we move on to 2 Allopexes. Now, sometimes I put them in as 1 unit, but most of the time I do keep them as 2 separate units, just because these are my objective takers again. These move of 12, so they can get to the objectives quite quickly, and they can hold their own in a fight. They've got quite a lot of attacks, especially the mouths and the fins. If they hit, you know, you're re-rolling 1s to wounds because of Futan as well, so, and the mount, so they can come along and do a lot of damage, so they can hold objectives quite well, unless you've got a lot more men on the objective than these guys have, which obviously the other opponent wins. But I just stick them on my own objectives, leave them there just to gather points, and they can do a lot of shooting. Okay, or a bit of shooting, shall we say. But again, they look cool. So I've painted this one up to look like a tiger shark. And I've painted this one to look like the big great white shark. So we've got jaws over here. Okay. So, they have a 12-inch move, 8 wounds each, 6 bravery, and a 4+ save. So not too bad. They have 2 types of shooting. So one's got a net launcher and one's got the harpoon launcher. The harpoon launcher has a 24-inch range and 3 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, and 1 rend. No rend, but 1 damage, sorry. The net launcher has an 18-inch range, 1 attack, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, and 3 damage a pop. Less likely to hit with that, more likely to hit with them, but they're just there really just to take objectives. And these guys are 140 points per shark. So if I put them in one unit, then it's going to be 280. If I have them 2 separately, it's still going to be 280, but it's 2 separate units that you can move independently. So I quite like the look of that. They have the melee attacks, so they have 5 attacks from the guys on top, and they have hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, no rend, 1 damage. It's alright, I guess. But it's these bits here, which is the shark itself. So the shark has the Allopex ferocious bite, 1 attack each shark, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, because I'm Futan, I reroll wound rolls of 1, -2 rend, 3 damage a pop. Lovely. Then it has the Allopex scythe fins, 4 attacks of these, 1-inch range, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, -1 and 1 damage. So again, it can take a lot of hits because it's got 8 wounds, and it can dish out a canny bit of damage as well. So yeah, I like these just to sit back and take objectives. So I've got 4 units of objective takers really. Okay, the other stuff are more fighty, get in there and do the nasty stuff. Okay, I don't take Lotan because unless I take my Nomatri force, which I'll do another video on, because I take this as a 2,000 point fun game that I use, then I'll bring a Nomatri squad, which is all to do with Nomatris, where I don't have much of the sharks or the Eidolon in there. I just do Nomatri units really. So we'll do another video on that. So then I have this guy here. So he's my hero. He's a priest, and he is the Ishlaen Soulscryer. Useless in combat. Okay, he has 3 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, no rend, 1 damage. He has 8 shooting attacks, so he sends his goldfish out to try and eat whatever's there. So he has 8 attacks with that within 18 inches. Hits on 5s though, wounds on 5s, no rend, 1 damage a pop. So you might get 1 or 2 damage through if you're lucky. Okay, so he's not really a combat person. I use him for his abilities. Now he's 100 points. Okay, he has a 6-inch move. His bravery is 6. His bravery is 7. His save is 6, and he has 5 wounds each. So you don't really want to get him into combat because he's just going to get eaten and chewed up to bits. All right. His ability though is fantastic. His ability is called Finder of Ways. What he can do is he can set up off the battlefield at the start of your game, and he can bring up to 2 units off the battlefield with you. Now I tend to stick the eels off with him, so the eels keep off. So I'll have him with the 2 eels starting off the board. Then at the end of your movement phase, he can come on anywhere along the board edge, and he has to be set up wholly within 6 inches from the board edge. So you can come on behind the enemy if you want, or the side, no problem. And then he has to set up the 2 units within 12 inches of him, okay, from the board edge as well, within 6 inches of the board edge. So he comes in literally, 12 inches away from an enemy. These guys come on 9 inches away from the enemy, which is great, so they've got a chance to do a first turn charge. But then he's got another ability, which is called Seeker of Souls. So at the start of your charge phase, he can pick an enemy unit that is visible to him, okay, and within 24 inches of him. And if he does so, you add 3 to the charge rolls for every unit that's charging that unit you've picked. Okay, so if you pick an enemy Stormcast unit over here within 24 inches, if these guys are within 12 inches of the Stormcast and they're going to try and charge him, they get +3 to charge, which is great. So that whole 9 inches away from an enemy, when you've come in from the back has now gone, you need a 6+ charge with a re-rollable because you've got the musician. So they're quite in quite quickly, okay, which I like the sound of that. But you have to end your move within ½ an inch of an enemy, which is fine because that's what you have to do with the charge anyway. So that's why he always comes in for it in this 2,000 points. As you can see, I don't have any casters because my Eidolon's not the caster. My Eidolon, he's the aspect of the storm, the fighter. So I have no casters in here whatsoever. The also benefit for having him, okay, he can do the Ishlaen rituals, which are, you do 3 rituals. You can either stop your enemies from getting cover, stop your enemies from flying, or heal 1 wound to an Eidolon and reroll failed hits for the Eidolon, or reroll failed casts to the Eidolon to your next hero phase, I think it is, on a 10+ on 2 dice. Okay, so he gets a chance to do that, but he gets benefits for that because he's a priest. Okay, so if you look into these keywords, it says he's a priest, which means he gets +1 to do that cast. So on a 9+, he gets a chance to do it. And it's not a spell, it's a priest ritual, which means you can't dispel it or unbind it. So, you know, if you get it, you get it, and that's what's happening. So it's a nice little bonus for him. And he's 100 points for that. 100 points to make you guys go around the back or at the sides to get them in quickly. I think it's worth it. I do think it's worth it. Sometimes I drop him from my list and have the Warscroll Battalion as the Achillion Corps, which again, I'll talk you through that. So, because he's 100 points and the Achillion Corps is 100 points for the Warscroll Battalion, I either have him in or I take him out, depending on if I fancy a change. Okay? So yeah, so that's that. Then we have Volturnos, the High King of the Deep himself. I don't bother with the Achillion King to start with, because for the extra 40 points, his abilities are so much better when it's further spread. And what that means is the king's abilities only affect units within 12 inches. He affects units within 18 inches, and his command ability is 18 inches as well, which that extra 6 inches either side gives you a massive area for the on the table, as well as is 3+ that he ignores spells, which I'll go through now. Okay, so him, I would rather take him than the king anytime. So he's 280 points. Okay. He has a move of 14. He has 8 wounds, bravery of 8, and a 3+ save. He has 3 melee attacks. The first one is through the Astra Solus, which is his sword that he's got. Excuse me. Okay, and it has 5 attacks with them. Hits on 3s. He can re-roll failed hit rolls of 1. Sorry, I can't speak today. Re-roll hit rolls of 1 for friendly Achillion units while they're wholly within 18 inches of the model. He's an Achillion unit. He's within 18 inches of himself, so that actually affects him. So he can re-roll 1s to hit. So he hits on 3s, re-rolls 1s. 3+ to wound. -1 rend, D3 damage. Pretty good. He has an ability for that Astra Solaris, that if any attack is of a 6+, so if you roll a dice and on a 6, it's -5 rend. -5. Unless you ignore rend, most things that I know, including himself, do not get a save against that. -5 rend. It's awesome. And D3 damage a pop. So there's a chance it can be 1, there's a chance it can be 3. But like I say, you can dish out a lot of damage. Okay, then he has 3 attacks from his Deep Mare, the Jaws and Talons. He has 3 attacks with them. Hits on 3s, rerolls 1s because of who he is. Wounds on 3s, reroll 1s because I'm Futan and it's a mount. -1 rend, 1 damage a pop. Not too bad. Then he has his Lashing Tail, so he has 3 attacks with them. Hits on 3s, reroll 1s because of who he is. Wounds on 3s, reroll 1s because of Futan Enclave. No rend, but 2 damage a pop. So he can dish out quite a lot of damage. Plus, when I do that, his command ability on the 3rd turn that I give the Leviathan, one of the units he picks himself, and he also picks the Eidolon. So they come along and do a load of damage. So, you know, instead of having 5 attacks, he has 8 attacks. Then he has 6 attacks. Then he has another 6 attacks. So he can dish out quite a lot of damage. Okay, then the rest of his abilities. So he's got the Crest of the High King, and this means he adds 1 to bravery characteristics for friendly Idoneth units while they are wholly within 18 inches of him, which is great because, like I said, these have got a bravery of 6, these have got a bravery of 6, these have got a bravery of 6, so it adds that extra bravery for them, so they're less likely to fail battle shock. Then he has Sealeith, the High King's Shield. Okay, you can re-roll, you can roll a dice if this model is affected by a spell, so any spell. If you do so, on a 3+, that spell has no effect on this model, which is brilliant. So it's basically an ignore spell ability on him on a 3+, which is better than average. And I like that for the endless spells that come in, or when somebody's trying to slow him down or whatever. He's great. Okay, and it's when he's affected by a spell. So if a unit that I have to attack has got a spell in it that says -1 to hit him because of that, on a 3+, he ignores that because it affects him. It doesn't. He'll go in and hit it as normal. So he's got a chance to do that, which is great. You've then got the first among Achillion, so he can re-roll hit rolls of 1 for Achillion units while they are wholly within 18 inches. So that is all my eels and my sharks and himself. He can re-roll 1s to hit. Oh, and the Leviathan. Okay, so he can come in and do that, which is brilliant. He then has his Deep Mare Horn, so his mount has that massive horn, and basically, after you complete a charge move, if you're within ½ an inch of the enemy, you've completed your charge move. Great. Roll a dice if this model ends a charge within 1 inch of an enemy unit. On a 2+, the nearest enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So he comes in, he dishes wounds out mortally, and then he smashes them with his attacks anyway. So again, he's nasty. And the command ability is the Supreme Lord of Tides, which is the one I was telling you about. It's basically a once per game thing, unless you've took extra stuff to make it a high tide ability, but you don't tend to get much of that. There's only one in here, which I think is the so it's a warscroll battalion that you have to take 2 Achillion cores, 2 Nomatri cores, and then a Royal Council core. So it's an expensive warscroll battalion to take. So I've not used it yet, but you can use that high tide ability twice, I think it is, in the game. But this one, really, for a normal game, you're only going to use it once, but that's all you need it for, because the amount of damage you're doing is insane. And the ability reads, you can use this command ability if Volturnos is your general, and the high tide ability from the Tides of Death table applies for this battle round. If you do so, pick 3 friendly Idoneth Deepkin units wholly within 18 inches of Volturnos. You add 1 to attack characteristics of melee weapons used by those units until your next hero phase, which is insane because the third battle round, all your units attack first. So if you go first, yeah, if you win the roll off and you go first that battle turn, you can come in, you're getting into close combat. All your guys attack first. Once you've done, if there's things left, you get them to attack you. Then it goes to your opponent's turn, and in their combat phase, you still go first because it's a third turn, and you still have that ability. So that third turn, you tend to wipe everything off the board. Anything that's in close combat with it is dead. Okay? It's awesome. So yeah, now he is always my general. I do always take him as my general so I can use that command ability. And then his command traits. There's 2 different command traits that you could look at taking. With him, there's only really, 99% of the time, you only take 1, which is the Born from Agony, okay? Which gives him +2 to his wound characteristic. So he gets 10 wounds. That's the main one I take with him. The other one is the Supreme Lord of Sea and Storm, which is +2 to bravery for Idoneth Deepkin units while they're within 12 inches of him, I think it is. But it's +2 instead of +1. It just gives you an extra +1 because he already gives everybody +1 bravery. So that one I tend to not go towards. It's just if I fancy a change, I'll bring it and see what happens. But usually the Born from Agony for him, the +2 wound characteristic. I also give him the artifact, which is an Achillion artifact, so it can only go on him, which is the Armour of Scythia, I think it's called. And basically it's -1 to hit him in melee combat. So he comes in with his 10 wounds now, does all of his damage. He has a 3+ save, okay? If he hasn't charged this turn and he's within 12 inches of the turtle, he gets +1 to his save, so he's got a 2-up save, okay? and it's -1 to hit him in melee combat. So he can come in and survive. He's very survivable, this guy. Okay, he can come in and dish out a lot of damage and take a lot because of his saves and -1 to hit him. So yeah, 280 points for Volturnos, or if you're going to go for the Achillion King, it's 240. Go with Volturnos. He's a much better choice. Then that leaves me with my last unit, okay, which is this one here, the Eidolon of Mathlann. Okay, the Eidolon of Mathlann, and it's the aspect of the Storm I take, not the Sea. The Sea's the spellcaster one. It's the Storm one I take because I like to give myself bubbles. Okay, and he's also the fighting one. Like I said, my style is more running up, kicking out of things, getting objectives with smaller units, the rest of the stuff going in looking for a fight, and causing all sorts of trouble. So I quite like him for his fighting ability. Anyway, he has a 12-inch move, a 3+ save, his bravery is 10, and his 12 wounds. And he's not a monster. He is a hero. He is not a monster, which is awesome. Because stuff that you get there, especially with his big base, people think it's a monster. It's not. So he still gets his cover bonus if he doesn't charges. Yeah. So his 3-up save goes to a 2-up save, which is insane for this monster. Well, it's not a monster. This massive guy should be a monster, but it isn't. Okay, he has the Futhtar Spear of Repressed Fury. It's a 2-inch ranged, 4 attacks. Hits on 3s. If he's within 18 inches of... no, it's not, sorry, because he's not Achillion. If it's on the 2nd turn or the 4th turn, because I take Futan, he gets to reroll 1s to hit. But if he charged, he's got a special ability. So you come down to the Crashing Upon the 4. You reroll hit rolls of 1 and add 1 to the damage characteristic for this model's Futhar Spear of Repressed Fury if this model made a charge move in the same turn. So he's re-rolling his hit rolls most of the time, this guy, because you're charging in, or you are, you're charging or it's the 2nd turn or the 4th turn, so you've got quite a lot of re-rolls with him. But you're hitting on 3s, it's above average. So you're hitting on 3s, you're wounding on 2s. Now, his other ability is Drenched with Hate. Re-roll wound rolls of 1 for friendly Idoneth Deepkin units while they are wholly within while they are within 9 inches of this model. So it doesn't have to be wholly, they just have to be within 9 inches. And he classes as an Idoneth unit himself, and he's within 9 inches of himself, so he gets a reroll 1s to wound. So it's hits on 3s, wounds on 2s, re-rolling the 1s, -2 rend, and 2 damage. 3 damage if it charges. So he's a beast when he comes in and does his charging, because he's getting re-rolls, he's hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s, wounding on 2s, re-rolling 1s, -2 rend, and 3 damage a pop for the 4 attacks. If it's the 3rd turn and I've used my king's ability, I give it to him, he comes and destroys everything as well. Awesome. He then has an attack with this cruel hook. So he has 4 attacks with this, 1-inch range. Hits on 2s, wounds on 3s, re-rolls 1s because of himself, -1 rend and 1 damage. So not too bad. Then you have a 2d6 attack from this Storm Shoal, which is all the little fishies and the octopuses and anything else that's down there that's going to fight. Your 3-inch range of this, 2d6 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, no rend but 1 damage a pop. So very, very hard hitting, a lot of wounds, and he's got some more abilities. So he can fly, okay, same as the king, same as all the mounts, they can all fly. Like I said, he can re-roll 1s to hit and add 1 to the damage characteristic of his spear. In addition, this model can charge in the same turn that it made a retreat move. So once it's gone in, done a little bit of fight, maybe there's one character left, you think he's going to, he's not going to do much, but you're stuck in combat with him, you just retreat him out and charge him into a different unit. Very, very good, very powerful. Finally, after he completes a charge move, he can heal D3 wounds. So he's a self-healing guy, and he's awesome. But he's 400 points. Very expensive when you're thinking like Croak is almost like, well, Croak's 400 and something points, isn't he? 480 or something. And, the abilities of, I use him. The points wise, I don't mind. Like I say, I always go ruler cool, and that is a cool looking model. Then he has another ability, which is the Drenched with Hate, the reroll 1s to wound for Idoneth units while they are within 9 inches of him. He's then got another ability which is awesome. At the start of your combat phase, you pick an enemy hero with the wound characteristic of less than 8. So it has to be less than 8. So not 8, less than. That is within 3 inches of this model. If it's within 3 inches of this model, you subtract 1 for hit rolls for that hero for the rest of the combat phase. So if that hero is not attacking him, but he's attacking, let's say, the Leviathan or the eels, and I've used this ability on that hero, it's -1 to hit the Leviathan. Okay. If I use it on the king when he's already -1, it becomes -2 to hit the king. Oh, the synergy with these, this is my little bubble of synergy that I've got these 3 units here. Okay, and with him the charging. So this is my sort of 2,000 point fun list. I like it. I think it's competitive. I mean, I've not played against other Idoneth units coming at me with lots of eels, but I think these can take out a lot of eels, especially with a bite coming in. You know, there's not much thing. I've played a lot of games with it, and I don't think I've lost a game properly with these when I played a full game. Okay, I can't think of a game. It's been close because when I was first learning, I didn't understand it, and you know, I didn't play them well. But hey, there you go. Now you're learning it. It's very powerful, you know. So, and again, it's got pretty much most of the units of the army, and I like the look of that. Okay. So yeah, so he's good. 400 points. Okay. Now that is my 2,000 point list. Okay, that I take. Like I said, if I needed to, I could drop this fella here, my Soulscryer. If I dropped him, I'd take the Achillion Core War Scroll Battalion. It's 100 points. Keep everything else the same, except this time I need to have 1 Leviathan, which is there. I need to have a minimum of units of 2 guards, which I have. I've got 2 units of guard there, and a minimum of 1 Allopex, which I've got 2 there. So I've got enough to get the battalion. And what this does is once per phase, so your shooting phase, your hero phase, your combat phase, your charging phase, yeah, any of them, once of them phases, so once per phase you can re-roll 1 hit, wound, save, run or charge roll for a unit from this battalion that is wholly within 12 inches of the Achillion Leviathan from the battalion when it re-roll is made. So if I keep these guys here near him, they can reroll their wounds, reroll 1s to wound for the mounts because they're Futan, reroll 1s to hit because they're next to the king. Yeah, so they're given all the reroll 1s to hit. I can reroll the charge if I want, or I can reroll the run, or I can just, you know, if I rolled a 2 and I go, I really want it to hit with that, so I'll roll it again because I'm going to spend my reroll once per phase, which is insane. So technically that is what, 4 rerolls a turn you have. Yeah, it's brilliant, and it's once per phase. So when you go to the next guy, your opponent's phase, it happens again because it's once per phase. So again, so in each battle round, that's what, 4 rolls you can have extra in each one. So that's 8 per turn. Oh, it's good for 100 points. That's well cheap enough for it. So I do look at taking that. So it all depends really how I fancy playing it. Then you can see in the back, I have 1 Gloomtide Shipwreck. In your army, you're allowed to take 2 Gloomtide Shipwrecks. I don't have 2 yet, I just have 1. And I do split them up. Okay, so they do come apart and I split them up, which you're allowed to do. And what this does is, it's been FAQ'd as well, so it tells you where you can place it. Now, after you've chosen your mission, after you've chosen your deployment zones, you then set up your Gloomtide ships before you set up any of the armies. Okay? Now, there's special rules that you have to put this in. So the first rule is you have to place it away from 1 inch away from terrain, other terrain. So I have to be 1 inch away from terrain. And you measure it from the hull. Okay, not the base, from the hull. So it has to be 1 inch away from terrain. The next rule is it has to be more than 6 inches away from another Gloomtide ship. Okay, which is fair enough. So you just basically split them up and you put them on 2 different parts of the board. The next one, the next rule in, it has to be at least 6 inches away from any objectives at the start of the game. Okay, at the start of the game, because there's missions where the actual objective bounces around, so it can actually bounce onto your Gloomtide ship. You know, you can't move your Gloomtide ship when it's down because it's classed as scenery. Okay, it's actually also a unit, but it's free in the Idoneth Deepkin Army, and you can bring 2 of them. So yeah, so that's the tool rules. Okay, it has to be placed down. Now, the benefits it gives is 2 things. One, if any of your Deepkin units are wholly within 3 inches of a Gloomtide ship, then anytime they take a wound or mortal wound on a 6+, that wound is negated. So it helps you for free. It's a no-brainer. Bring it, because you never know. You know, it might save a couple of your models. So on a 6+, you ignore the wounds. Okay. Then the start of your hero phase, or start of the person's hero phase who owns the Deepkin Gloomtide ship, if there is any enemy or any unit within 6 inches, so not wholly within, just within 6 inches, on a dice roll on a 4+, you take 1 mortal wound, or on a 6+, you take D3 mortal wounds. So for a unit that's free, that can be blocking terrain, so you can put it in a, you know, between 2 other terrains, and they have to, it sort of like funnels people in, you know, like Sparta the 300, where they have to funnel them in. You could look at doing that, so they have to come through there, so there's a chance you're going to go off. You know, it's a nice addition to the army. Okay, so that's what they get. That's your Gloomtide ship. I've talked to you about the Futan Enclave I take. Yeah, now there's lots of different enclaves. I take the Futan one because, like I say, I'm more of an aggressive player. I get in and I do like Rule of Cool, and unfortunately all the cool models are the ones with the mounts. So this one suits my fighting style the best, which is the reroll ones to hit, and the Flood Tide ability lasts at 2nd round and 4th round, and I can reroll room rolls of 1 for my mounts. So it's a very powerful unit. Okay, that's what I tend to take. Then I've talked to you about the artifacts, yeah, which is the armour of Scythia, which is on my general, which is always Volturnos. Subtract 1 to hit rolls for melee weapons that target the bearer. Okay, so that's the main one I take. Then I take the Born from Agony, which I told you about, the +2 wounds on him. So again, it's a fighty army. It's a big, massive, very speedy army. Most of the stuff can get in quite quickly. These guys tend to sort of slowly come up and wipe up any mess at the end. So yeah, and take objectives. That's what I use. The other abilities for this, okay, for any of you non-Idoneth Deepkin players, okay, is they've got the Allegiance abilities, and there's 2 of them. First one is the Forgotten Nightmares, which is missile weapons can only be used to target an Idoneth Deepkin unit while they are with this trait, while they are the closest visible enemy model. So if I had, and I tend to sort of put my guys like this, so my big boys at the back, surrounded by these, okay? Anybody who's trying to shoot these guys, they can't, because I usually have my little guys at the front. They're going to take all the shots, because I'm not too fussed about them really. They're just taking all shots because they are the closest enemy model, or closest models to the enemy, and that's what they have to target. So it's really good, and you have to think about that when you're playing, so you can look and look after your units a bit more by strategically placing them. I tend to sort of make myself a little bubble like that, yeah, with these, and then I'll fly him into the centre of it. I'll do the same with that, and I'll fly this into the centre. Okay, that's tend to what I'm going to look at doing. I'm telling everybody my tactics here, and I'm playing a tournament on the 17th of February. It's only 1,500 points, so I have 10 models for my 1,500 point list, which is pretty much the back lot. Okay. So yeah, so that's one of the battle traits, which is a powerful one. The second one is the Tides of Death, okay, which means each turn something else is happening for the Deepkin. So the first turn, or the first battle round, it's low tide. So in this battle round, all my units that are eligible to be in cover have been classed as being in cover. So he's not, and the Allopexes are not, because they're monsters. But everybody else, unless they're charred, classes have been in cover. So the first turn, everybody gets +1 to the saves. The second turn is classed as Flood Tide, and in this battle round, all units with this Tides of Death battle trait that run and they can run and shoot, or run and charge in the same turn, but they can't do both. So really, these guys just run up and keep running and do the charge and move, because to get in very quickly. and these can be literally within charge range with the first turn, possibly, well, first turn with him, second turn with everything else, with all the other abilities, which is awesome. The third turn then, in this battle round, this is the Uber battle round where I can use his command ability and all my units. So in this battle round, units with this Tides of Death battle trait fight before any other units in the combat phase. Fight with all eligible Idoneth Deepkin units, one after the other, and resolve any fights with any of the others after. So basically, all my guys attack first before any of the opponents. Then the opponent gets to attack. Then it goes to the opponent's turn in that third battle round, and all my guys get to attack again first, and then he can attack. So the third battle round for these guys come up, and they're devastating on that turn. They do a lot of damage. So the idea is trying to kill them as quick as you can. But it's very hard to try and kill them, especially when they're 3-up saves, unrendable saves, and yeah, +1 is just awesome, guys. All right. The fourth turn is called Ebb Tide, and in this battle round, all units with the Tides of Death battle trait can retreat and still shoot or charge in that same turn, which is awesome again, you know. However, I take Food Tan, which means that Ebb Tide changes to Flood Tide, so I get 2 Flood Tides. So I can run and charge and run and shoot twice and reroll ones to hit. So there's a lot of rerolling ones and a lot of synergy with my abilities, okay, with my army that I've got. This here is a very fun 2,000 point list because there's a lot of fast moving units in there, a lot of good saves. But like I say, when I play games, and I keep telling this to all my friends that I play with and everything else, you play to the strength of your army and you also play the mission. Don't just run in and try and fight. So that's why I've got 4 units that go and take objectives. Possibly, what, 4 or 5, I've possibly 6 units that take objectives because these guys can move fast and take objectives. These guys come in and cause trouble that the opponent has to deal with. So the strength of this army is fast moving, taking objectives and being able to fight. So I sent me 3 big hitters into the area of my opponent to cause all sorts of trouble. So it stops people from going to get objectives while I can go and take the objectives and win the game. Because if I get tabled and I've got more objectives than them, or more points from the objectives, then I win. Okay, it's as simple as that. So this is why I like to look and take a lot of different units. Okay, and I've got the dice, the Idoneth dice. They're not great. They look nice, but when you're using them, you've got to really, really have good eyesight with them because they're see-through and you don't know whether it's 3 or 4 hits because they're all got wavy lines, and I just have them there to help me with the command points or whatever I'm using. Okay, so that's what I tend to use them for. But yeah, that is my 2,000 point list, guys. Obviously you guys will do something different and you'll explain to me, you know, why you do it, and that's fine. So again, please leave some comments. And even, you know, let me know your lists. I'll even try your list and see if it works for me, and I'll give it a go. I always like to try different things. You know, so my list that I'm going to take into the tourney, okay, is basically minus the 2 guys at the back, minus him and minus one of the Allopexes. But that is pretty much my 1,500 point list that I'm going to bring for a tourney that I'm doing on the Sunday the 17th of February. Hopefully I'm going to be able to video some of that as well, so we get some battle reports and see how these guys do. But yeah, like I say, leave a message in the comments, let me know what you think of the list, you know, what can I improve on, and stuff like that. Any questions you've got, I'll be quite happy to answer any of the questions. You know, why do I take that and stuff, I'm quite happy with that. So yeah, leave some comments, guys. Please subscribe, and you know, we'll do a lot more videos like this. I'll do a 1,000 points list, and I'll also do a Nomatri list that I run, just to give you guys an idea of it. Okay, so yeah, I'll see you guys soon.